Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. Today we're going to be talking about coolers, and we'd like to thank Pete Monroe for liking and sharing the podcast. Richard Laramie of Joliet, Illinois had the first patent in 1951 for a portable cooler, and then Coleman took that design in 1954. They made a galvanized steel cooler, and they're still making steel coolers. So Coleman has a 54-quart stainless steel cooler. It uses that classic design, and the lid can be used as a seat. It'll support up to 250 pounds, so that's pretty cool. Rubbermaid and Igloo were two other companies that got into the cooler business early, and they're still making coolers.
Exciting.
You can get styrofoam coolers, very lightweight, inexpensive, and this is usually for someone who doesn't plan on using a cooler long term.
Like maybe more than a day.
Right. Styrofoam's 98% air, so very good insulator, but it's very bad for the environment when you dispose of them. Did you know that styrofoam is actually a trademark of Dow Chemical?
No.
Weird, huh? Metal coolers, very durable, but they can dent and scratch. They can be very heavy, too. You can get fabric coolers or soft-sided coolers. Sometimes they call them collapsible coolers or cooler bags. And they come in a range of material, very lightweight. Many of these are going to fold down for easy storage. You can have pockets or netting on the side, so you can actually get a lot of extra storage on the outside of those containers, too. Hard plastic coolers are the most popular, and they come in a wide range of sizes and insulation thicknesses. And the high-end roto-molded coolers can keep food and drink cold for days. So this is rotational molding. They take these plastic-like resins, load it into a mold, and then it rotates in an oven, and you're getting a one-piece hollow cooler. So the wall thickness, the corners are very uniform. It creates a very strong cooler, and then the high-end coolers are injected with a polyurethane commercial-grade insulation.
Okay.
Engel was one of the first high-performance roto-molded coolers with this injected insulation. With the less expensive coolers, they're not going to have that added insulation in the lid or the sides.
Okay.
If you're using a cooler for a lunchbox and it's going to be inside or in a storage area, soft-sided coolers really a nice option. Many of these are going to fold up, making it easy to carry after you use them, and you can get square, tote, or duffel bag shaped. They're going to have shoulder straps or handles. Some of these soft-sided coolers are designed for ice packs, so they're going to have netting to hold the packs. Some are designed for ice, so I would check the label and do a little research before I picked one up.
Right.
Some of the top-rated soft coolers, like a personal cooler for lunch, the Arctic 20, so it's spelled R-T-I-C.
Okay.
I thought that was cool. And this is a high-efficiency soft cooler, so it has 2-inch insulation on the top, where it's important, especially if you have this outside and you have the sun beating on it, and then 1 inch on the sides. It has external pockets, it's leak-proof, and then this has a 5-day ice retention rating.
Wow.
And this is going to vary, of course, depending on where you're keeping it, how often you open the lid, if you keep the lid open. But that's one of the ratings you're looking for. Igloo has their marine soft cooler. This has 1-inch foam insulation. It's 22 quarts. It has a 2-day ice retention rating. Polar Bear Nylon is a duffel-style lunch cooler, and they have different sizes, but they have a 24-hour ice rating on theirs. It has 1-inch foam insulation, zipper pockets, and a padded handle. And then an interesting one is the Picnic Time Pranzo, so it's P-R-A-N-Z-O lunchbox. This has separate areas for hot and cold items, so it's insulated and separated. It has zipper pockets. It comes with a fork, a knife, and a spoon, salt and pepper shakers, and a cloth napkin.
Wow. Fancy.
And if you plan on shopping coolers, I would do most of my research online because most retail stores are not going to have a very wide variety.
Right. They're going to carry like the one that's on sale, the one just for drinks,
Right.
a small one on wheels, and the styrofoam.
Yeah, it's amazing the stuff I saw online. For a hard-bodied lunch cooler, the Igloo Playmate is still one of the biggest selling lunch coolers. So if you're looking for a personal cooler.
Right, so this is the one that looks like a house?
Yeah, the top is peaked,
right.
So it has the hole in the top where you and that opens completely off to either side, so it's very easy to get into the cooler. They came out with that in the 1970s, and they're still selling it. Amazing, huh?
Well, if you've got something that's good, why change it?
Yeah, really. The Coleman Flip Lid 6 personal cooler has a lid that you can use as a tray, so it flips over. It has built-in drink holders. The Stanley 7-quart Heritage cooler with thermos, it was very highly rated, and the thermos is sitting on top of the cooler, so it's keeping the coffee hot. The thermos is rated at 24 hours, so it's going to keep something hot 24 hours.
Wow.
And then the cooler has foam insulation, and it's rated at 16 hours to keep your food cold. And this has the look of that classic Stanley lunchbox.
What's the difference?
So this isn't like a true lunchbox, it's actually a cooler. So the old time ones were just a lunch box where you just throw sandwiches in there.
So it didn't keep stuff cold?
Right, you didn't put ice in it. But this is actually a cooler with the thermos on top, so it has that look. You know they came out with the thermos in 1913, Stanley did?
No.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
If you're working construction or store your cooler outside, Klein has a lunchbox cooler, and it's called the Tradesman Pro Tough Box. So it's hard plastic, it's 17 quarts, it has polyurethane foam insulation. This is going to keep food and drinks cold for 30 hours.
Wow.
For hiking, camping, and boating, you can get backpack coolers to keep your hands free. So they're insulated, waterproof. You can fill them with ice. They're going to have pockets and flaps. Some of them come with netting or cargo straps so you can tie things onto it. Some of them have bottle koozies.
No way.
Did you know that koozie is also a trademark name? Isn't that weird?
No, yeah.
So the padded straps, they distribute the weight real well. Your hands are free. Great for one-day trips and outings. Some of the top-rated backpack coolers are Polar Bear Cooler Backpack. So this is rated at 24-hour ice retention. The Igloo Marine Backpack Cooler was rated very high. And then Picnic Time, their Zuma Backpack Cooler was highly rated. And if you're looking for backpacks, look for, a wide variety of pockets. You want them leak-proof and no sweat. And I would try it out first. Test the placement of the shoulder straps where it hits your body. A couple of the complaints I saw, the bottom of the backpack, if they have the hard plastic molded bottoms, which are good for setting, it sets up nice and it protects it. But a lot of people said, depending on the design, it can dig into your back when you're walking, especially long distance.
Right.
The rubber bottoms with high feet are good, because if you can get airflow under it, it actually helps keep the cooler cold longer. If you're shopping for a traditional style cooler, price can be a big factor.
Yeah, some of these are really expensive.
And if you're only using this for just a short period of time, you're watching your kids play soccer, baseball, any cooler's going to do a fine job, especially if it's just keeping drinks cold.
Right.
If you have plenty of ice. But for these high-efficiency coolers, there's a lot of different factors that you should really think about. So for the size, you want to think about your long-term use, and in general, a bigger cooler is going to stay cold longer, it's going to have more ice. But depending on how many people you're packing for and how many days you need the food and drinks to stay cold, it can be very heavy and hard to carry. And then you don't want it so big that you're not going to be filling it. The more airspace you have, the faster your ice is going to melt.
Right.
And you want a size you can fill with food and drinks and ice and have no airspace. For camping or multiple day trips, 2 coolers is a nice option. So you have one for drinks that can be opened a lot and then one for food. So it's going to be much easier to carry and more efficient at keeping the food at the right temperature.
Right.
For a drink cooler, you want to plan on a 2-to-1 ratio of ice to drinks. So 2 parts ice, 1 part drink. For food, plan on ice packs or block ice on the bottom of the cooler. Then you're going to be putting your food in. You're going to put cubed ice on top of the food and all around it. You want to completely fill the airspace. Coleman, they recommend about 3/4 pound of ice per quart for your cooler.
Okay.
So if you have a 50-quart cooler, they're recommending 37 pounds of ice.
Wow.
A 70-quart cooler, 52 pounds of ice.
That's a lot of ice.
So you really want to plan your meals before you think about your cooler. What is the average trip you're going to take? What's the average amount of food?
Right.
And then you need to plan for that space, because the cooler, you're going to probably have 1/4 to half of it filled with ice.
Right, because the block ice melts slower than the cubed ice.
Right, exactly.
So you need to think about that.
Right. When you're looking at the different coolers, some companies talk about how many cans it will hold,
right,
or some will talk about the ice capacity in pounds, and then some are going to give the size in quarts. And what's weird is it can either be the overall size of the cooler or the inside dimension, which is actually the true quart size of what it's going to hold.
Because you'll see like 20-quart cooler, but a lot of them aren't. It doesn't measure out to that.
It's not the inside dimensions, which is crazy. For a single person for a day, around 25 quarts does a nice job. For a weekend, 40 quarts. 50 to 80 quart is the most common camp cooler size for a family for the weekend. 70 to 100 quart if you plan on an extended trip and then you're going to be adding ice to this as it melts.
Okay.
Size is also a consideration for lifting. Will it be one person or two people lifting this and carrying it? Because a fully loaded 70 quart or larger is probably going to take a couple people to move it. And then look at the handles, the pads, the straps. How comfortable are they? Do your hands fit into it well? The integrated handles were rated very high for durability. Look at the construction. The roto-mold plastic are some of the highest rated for durability, staying cold, and lighter than metal. For the insulation, if you're going on a weekend trip or longer, look for commercial grade injected insulation. The top rated coolers are going to be 2 or 3 inches thick.
Wow.
The thicker the insulation, the longer it's going to stay cold. And a good guide is on the days of ice retention listed on the label.
Okay.
And check the thickness of the lid and the bottom also. Some companies have thin insulation on the lid or no insulation. So you can tap the lid and the sides when you're comparing similar models, and you can tell pretty quickly whether it's hollow. The higher efficiency coolers are going to have a rubber gasket around the lid, and this is going to create an airtight seal like a freezer. The one-piece gaskets are rated the best. And on less expensive coolers, make sure the lid locks down tight and it isn't loose because air kills ice. On the high-efficiency coolers with the lid gaskets, a vacuum release button is going to equalize the pressure to make it easier to open. Interesting, isn't it?
Are they hard to open?
Well, the difference in pressure, so the temperature inside compared to the temperature outside, that pressure kind of locks the lid down tight. And so it's also good to look for a wide lid or a handle on the lid so it's easier to open. If you're camping, look for locking lids to prevent bears and other animals from getting into your cooler, and the metal corners that are used for padlocks and locking cables, if they also work as a bottle opener, that's a nice feature.
Cool.
Check the lid that it locks in the open position for easy access to the cooler. Some models, I saw some negative reviews saying that the lid was so heavy and it tilted back too far so it would tip the cooler over if it wasn't fully loaded. Look for hinges with a full-length stainless steel rod. The 2-pin hinges are less durable. And if you're going to be using your cooler on a boat, an RV, or an ATV, does it have attachments for tie-downs or grooves in the lid to secure it in place? And then I would check if there's tie-down kits available for that model. Rubber non-slip feet are great for boats, and you want big feet to raise the cooler off the ground or any surface because airflow under the cooler is going to keep it cold longer. Lids or coolers rated as seating or a casting platform are convenient. And
What does that mean?
So if you're on a boat and you're casting, so you're using your fishing rod, you're standing on top of you're elevating yourself and you're casting your fishing rod.
Off of your cooler?
Off of your cooler, it's the best. And some are going to have lid pads for seating. So I like that for boating, for fishing, for camping. It's really nice if you can use it as a seat. The lid latch should hold the lid very tightly, and the T-shaped heavy-duty rubber latches are very popular. They pull down hard, and they're going to create an airtight seal because you definitely don't want a loose lid. There's also hard plastic latches. Drain plugs are convenient for large coolers, and you can get fast drain plugs with garden hose thread. And a lanyard is really nice to have in your plug so you don't lose it in the sand or drop it into the lake. And the coolers with a slanted bottom actually help it drain completely without having to lift up one side. Some other features I would consider when comparing coolers: do you need wheels to make it easier? Long ropes. Some of these come with long ropes and handles so you can pull it across the sand if you're going to the beach. Cargo nets that are attached to the outside, bungee cords, baskets, cup holders. Some have dividers inside the cooler and it becomes a cutting board.
Oh, that's nice.
If you're doing a lot of fishing, it's nice to have a tape measure on the lid so you can lay your fish there and take your photo. UV resistant, tie-down kits, replaceable latches and parts, which is kind of important if you're going to use this long term, especially on the expensive ones. Is it stain resistant, inside and out, odor inhibitors? And is it bear-proof? So for some national parks, you have to have bear-proof canisters or coolers because the bears can smell through most of these containers at great distances.
That's a bummer.
And if the bears get used to eating human food, they start going into tents. They try to break into cars and cool it because they can recognize the shape of a cooler once they get used to it. That's what they found. And if the forest rangers find that a bear is constantly going into camp looking for human food, they end up having to kill these bears.
Oh, that's sad.
So check with the parks you're going to. Some allow bear-proof locked coolers to be secured to either food poles or to like a tree. Some parks are going to require the coolers to be kept in bear boxes.
What is a bear box?
So these are metal lockers for your food and coolers. And I would check with the National Park Service website for the park you're going to be going to and check out the dimensions. And different parks have different sizes, which is it's odd that they're not standardized.
Right.
So some common sizes: 18 inches high, 33 inches deep, 45 inches wide, 17 inches high, 17 inches deep, 49 inches wide, and some areas I saw 28 inches high, 35 inches deep, and 43 inches wide. So quite a variety. And some areas are going to have these all lined up. So I was reading a couple of these websites with campers, and they're saying, hey, use a colored flag or some type of cloth to mark your box because they all look the same after a day hiking. And there are a lot of cooler companies now. Some of the top-rated coolers at a low cost: the Coleman Rugged 55 AT. So this is 55 quart. It has a telescopic handle, 8-inch wheels, so it works like a hand truck. And you can stack your supplies on top. It has integrated bungees, and this clears the ground. A lot of people who go to the beach say it really rolls well on sand.
Nice.
And then Coleman has their extreme coolers. In your high efficiency coolers, some of the top rated: Engel Deep Blue, it's ENGEL. This is bear proof. It has 10-day ice retention. It's compatible to dry ice. So some coolers you can't use dry ice in it, it'll crack them. It has 2-inch insulation on the top, the sides, and the bottom. It has a silicone lid gasket to keep it airtight. It has ropes and side handles, so they say it's a very nice system. It has a 3-year warranty, and you can use it as a stool or a seat. The Yeti coolers are very highly rated, and it's YETI. You know Pliny the Elder, the Roman historian in 70 BC?
Everybody knows Pliny.
He wrote about the satyr of India. So this was an animal of extraordinary swiftness, sometimes would walk on 4 feet, sometimes walking erect with the features of a human. So it was India's version of the abominable snowman.
Wow.
And Pliny wrote about it. You know what I also found out that Pliny wrote about? Was ticks, which I didn't talk about in our tick episode.
Way to go.
Pliny hated the ticks.
Does anybody love ticks, JC?
No, scientists. The Yeti Tundra is very highly rated, and it can be used as a casting platform or a seat. It has the rubber T-latches to hold the lid down tight. It has the rope handles and the integrated side handles. So those are very highly rated by people. 2-inch insulation all the way around, and the lid has 3 inches of insulation to protect it against heat from the sun.
No way.
Non-slip feet. It has tie-down slots. It has locking holes in the corners and a full-length hinge, and a 5-year warranty. Orca coolers have a lot of nice features. So it's ORCA. They have a lifetime warranty. They're made in the USA. They have their own line of locks and then cables and locks that fit their coolers, tie-down kits, they have cushions and baskets, and they have a 7 to 10 day ice retention, and they're bear-proof,
Nice.
and 2 to 3 inches of insulation. You'll like OtterBox, so it's
Why?
OTTER. When you call their customer service, Peyton Manning answers the phone.
Oh, fantastic.
So 2-inch insulation on the bottom and walls, 14-day ice retention, and these are modular. They have these integrated rails on the outside of the cooler for all their accessories. So originally this company started with these waterproof dry boxes. So if you're out in the wild, if you're camping, hunting, fishing on the beach, it keeps all your items that you don't want wet dry, and then
Okay.
they went into the cooler business, and it's also bear certified. Couple other top-rated coolers: Arctic, RTIC, Vibe, VIBE. So the Vibe cooler, the Vibe Element, this is actually a kayak company, and they were rotomolding their kayaks,
Right.
and they took that technology into coolers.
Nice.
And then Canyon coolers. A couple interesting coolers. So Ryobi, RYOBI, has an 18-volt cooler. So it's
18 volt.
So it's a 50-quart wheeled cooler, which is kind of
Okay.
cool. And then on top of it, it has a fan that blows air. So it uses the 18-volt battery, and it blows air from the ice.
Wow.
So if you're in your tent and it's a hot day, it will actually blow the cold from the inside the cooler on you, and it will run for 4 hours on a charge.
Nice.
The coolest cooler, So that's the name of it, Coolest Cooler.
Right.
So this has a blender that fits into the lid to crush ice. It has a Bluetooth speaker. It has a USB charger. When you open it, it has LED lights. So if you're getting into your cooler at night, it has a magnetic bottle opener. So it grabs the caps when you open it rather than just flying all over. It comes with 4 plates that are stored in the lid. It comes with a ceramic knife, a cutting board, a corkscrew, tie-down cords, wheels, and a telescopic handle. So it's the coolest. I have some tips to keep your cooler cold longer.
That's exciting.
You want to pre-chill it. So if you're storing your cooler in the garage or the shed, bring it inside the night before, put some ice into it, close the lid, and that's going to absorb that cold. Before you pack your cooler with your food or drinks, load the bottom with ice blocks or ice packs. Ice blocks are going to melt much slower than ice cubes, and then those ice packs are going to reduce the amount of melted ice.
So one thing you could do when you go to the store and you're buying bags of ice,
right?
Take some ice, the bags from the back of the freezer that are solid.
So solid, yeah.
Right, and so that you could use as ice blocks.
Yeah, smart. I like it. So when you're loading your food, you want to think about first in, last out, so that you're keeping the lid closed as much as possible. And if you have a large cooler, pack one side with breakfast or lunch, one side with dinner. That way you're going to minimize how long you have the lid open also.
Right.
And then layer the sections with cubed ice. Cover everything with ice, and you want to completely fill all the airspace. When the ice melts, you want to leave the water. It's going to help keep the cooler cold longer. If you're using it for extended periods of time and you have a large cooler, then you're going to want to drain a little bit and continually add ice. You want to keep your cooler in the shade. Some manufacturers say that their coolers will stay cold twice as long in the shade. If you don't have shade, you can use blankets or tarps to cover the lid and keep the lid closed as much as possible.
Right.
And you also want airflow underneath the cooler. 2 coolers are going to be more efficient, one for drinks, one for food. Add ice as it melts for multiple days. You want to completely fill that airspace. And freezing bottles of water are going to help keep the cooler cold longer. And then as it melts, you've got drinking water. And then one thing I didn't mention, when you're loading this, you want to make sure everything you put in the cooler you've pre-chilled.
So what does that mean?
You don't want anything room temperature to start melting that ice. You want to keep your food cooler 40 degrees Fahrenheit or lower to prevent the growth of Salmonella, E. coli, or botulinum. And get food back in the cooler as soon as possible. When the outdoor temperature is low, a couple of the medical sites are saying you should get your food back into the cooler within 2 hours. If it's over 90 degrees, get your food back into the cooler within an hour. But I would say the faster, the better. You can get the Accurite, so it's ACURITE cooler thermometer. It has an LCD screen so you can check the temperature, or just a regular old-fashioned, the metal refrigerator thermometers do a really nice job kind of hanging inside.
Oh, really?
Some of the top-rated ice packs, Engel, they have their own line. Yeti has their own line of ice packs. Cooler Shock, Arctic Ice, and Techna Ice, so it's TECHNI ice. This comes in flat sheets. When you get it, you have to soak it in water. It absorbs the water, and then it becomes an ice pack. And it's kind of cool. Very highly rated. And then for the most affordable ice pack, Rubbermaid.
Do you have anything else to add? I can't believe we talked about coolers for this long.
It's amazing, all the different companies that are making coolers now, and how many there are to choose. Like growing up, Rubbermaid or Igloo. That's all they had. So if you're using a cooler a lot, I would take the time to do some research, look at the features, the accessories available, and then buy something that's big enough so that you have room for plenty of ice.
Let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, the Spotify mobile app, the Google Play Music app, iHeartRadio, and CastBox.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
You can download our books, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, on Amazon.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review.
You can follow us on Twitter at Fix It Podcast. You can follow Cindy at Fix It Co-host, and you can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.